Welcome to this webinar. My name is Oliver Rossi. I am a solutions architect for DataCore Software, the leader in software-defined storage. Today, I'm going to focus my presentation on our Veeam integration capability. From a high level, DataCore is a software-defined storage platform, which brings the virtualization benefit down to the storage layer. Our software installs on traditional x86 server hardware or can be run as a virtual machine and essentially provide an advanced layer of storage functions or storage services across any type of block storage devices, whether that storage is SAN attached, a cloud gateway, or in a hyper-converged fashion, or direct attach, or PCIe flash card. It doesn't really matter. Allowing to reprovision virtual disk to physical or virtualized hosts that are consuming that storage. And the functionality that we provide are performance acceleration, centralized management, automation of storage provisioning, pooling of capacity, and protection of the storage, and essentially eliminating any single point of failure in the storage infrastructure. So that's the high level of what we do. Now, in terms of the feature stack itself, if you look at this slide, you will see that it's a fairly comprehensive and advanced set of storage services. DataCore has been around for 17 years, and our first storage virtualization product shipped in late '99, and we're today deployed in over 25,000 live locations. So our software really focuses in 4 different areas. Management of storage, so centralized management, cloud integration, analysis and reporting, and so on and so forth. Efficiency of how you consume your storage with things such as thin provisioning, storage pooling, enabling migration between storage devices, regardless of make, brand, and model. Then performance around storage, how to enhance the performance through caching methodology, accelerating any type of pool of storage or class of storage with a different upper tier class. For instance, you could take your existing storage subsystem and accelerate its performance by adding PCIe flash card, and we enable auto-tiering between the 2 classes of storage, even though they're from different make, brand, and model, or even turn on random write acceleration or quality of service. So these are all performance-related features and capability. And then the last thing is really protecting the access to your data by eliminating any single point of failure in your infrastructure or taking the data off-site. So with synchronous replication or async replication, protecting against data corruption with continuous data protection. And the last one is the ability to support backup technologies such as Veeam backup integration by leveraging our snapshot capability. So in this release, our focus for Veeam backup integration is VMware vSphere environment, right? And the challenge of running Veeam backup in a vSphere environment is that unless you have one of the supported storage vendor with their storage plugin, you are leveraging the vSphere snapshot of virtual machine for the extended period of time it takes to actually take the backup, whether that backup is LAN-based or direct SAN access. Okay, so what we've done with DataCore is we're leveraging our snapshot capability and a set of clever script to actually minimize the burden of having to keep the VMware vSphere snapshot on for an extended period of time, right? So the result is that you can take your backup more frequently and minimize the impact in production simply because we reduce the amount of time we need to keep those VMware snapshot alive, right? And that results in greater productivity, obviously. So how does that work exactly? So what we do is, here on this slide, you can see a traditional DataCore HA configuration with 2 DataCore servers consolidating storage and providing highly available data store to a VMware ESX environment on top. We also have a VMware ESX proxy server as well as our Veeam backup server. And what we're doing is we're provisioning a snapshot to both the VMware ESX proxy environment as well as the backup server. And the inventory of the VM that we want to protect is going to be taken and read from that proxy environment through the snapshot. And so the backup also will leverage the snapshot, so essentially a direct SAN access type of policy to read directly from the SAN. And what we do is we leverage the vSphere VM snapshot for a very small period of time. It's only a brief moment so that we can update our snapshot after the VM has been quiesced. And as soon as our snapshot has been updated, we release the snapshot from the production ESX environment. And as you can see here in this green dotted line, it completely isolates the backup traffic away from the production environment and also completely release the production environment from having to keep those VMware snapshot for extended period of time. Okay. Okay, so this is my environment. What you can see here on the left is my 2-node HA configuration for DataCore. So I have DataCore Server 1 and DataCore Server 2 in an HA pair in the same server group. On the far right, you can see that I'm provisioning storage to my production ESX environment, right? So the Baytax Service data center. And I have created also a separate data center in which I have my Veeam proxy ESX server here. This Veeam proxy ESX server is being provisioned with snapshots of all the different data stores that I intend to protect, actually the VM that I intend to protect that are sitting on those data stores. So if I pick, for instance, this test DSO1 virtual disk, you will see how it is provisioned. So let's scroll down here. I have this test DSO1. I have provisioned this test ESO1 data store to my ESX environment, as you can see here. So ESX1 and ESX2. On this one, I have a VM that I intend to protect. I'll show you that VM in a second. And here is a snapshot that I have created that I have provisioned to my ESX host, right? That is my proxy ESX host here, as well as my Veeam backup server here. Notice that we have a specific naming convention. You have to use Veeam dash the name of the virtual disk so that our script can automatically recognize the snapshots that you're provisioned to the proxy environment. So now let's take a look at vCenter so you have an understanding of what we're protecting. So here's vCenter, okay? The machine I'm currently protecting is this one here that I have highlighted. And you can see that I am provisioning that storage to that ESX environment. Okay, so if we take a look at the data store, you will see here this test DSO1 data store. And on that test DSO1 data store, I have this machine that I'm protecting. Okay. Now, what I have done is I've also served my snapshot to the ESX proxy environment, and I have defined and loaded the configuration or the inventory, if you will, of that VM under that ESX proxy environment. So if we take a look at where the storage is coming from, you'll see it's coming from that test DS data store. And that test DS data store is really the snapshot virtual disk. You will see that it's actually this Veeam dash test DSO1 that is supporting this test DSO1 data store. Okay, so that's how it's essentially set up. Now let's take a look at our Veeam server. Our Veeam server, here it is, right? So essentially all I have done in Veeam is I have defined which are the managed server, and you can see that I am registering my vCenter server here, right? And it has all free ESX environment, and I'm really going to pull the information from this Veeam ESX proxy server that I have defined in there, right? So here it is, that's my proxy server, okay? And when I create a backup job, essentially all I have to do is I have to define what that backup job is and which VM I want to protect. Okay, so how would I go about creating a new backup job in Veeam? So very simple, right? You go to backup replication, you right click here and say backup and say new job, you go next, you pick up your virtual machine. So for this you click add, it's going to prompt you with all the different ESX hosts that you have defined in your vCenter, right? So here I'm going to pick my proxy environment, and under that proxy environment, I'm going to pick the virtual machine I want to protect. Say add that virtual machine. I'm going to say next. Storage, just do automatic selection. I'll show you in a little bit how I have defined my proxy, my storage proxy for Veeam, and then just click next. Guest processing, whatever it is that you want to do. Schedule, we don't run the job automatically because we're calling that job from a different set of scripts. And then we just create the backup job. Okay, so here I'm going to show you one that is already created. Here it is. Okay, now that a Veeam backup job is defined, all we need to grab is the job ID for that Veeam backup job. Okay, then what we're going to do is we're going to define a Windows scheduled task that essentially is going to run on a schedule. And here I'm defining a daily backup job here. And what this scheduled task is going to do is essentially call this Veeam integration PowerShell script, which allows to do all the magic of quiescing the VMware environment through VMware snapshots, calling the snapshot at the DataCore level, doing all the rescanning in the proxy ESX environment, and at the same time kick up the backup job. And you can see that the parameter to that script is the Veeam backup job ID that we just identified. So if I show you this task, you will see it's very simple, right? So it is running, in my particular case, under a very specific account that I have defined with proper credentials. So it's DCS Veeam. The trigger is just a daily time. And the action is to actually call PowerShell with the right parameter, calling the script as well as the Veeam backup job ID that I just identified. And that's essentially it. So there's a few configuration items I wanted to cover before we kick off this first backup job. So first of all, in Veeam, I have edited my VMware proxy to really support a direct SAN access transport mode, right? I left the detection of data stored to automatic detection, and I just changed the max concurrent task to 4 so I can run the appropriate amount of concurrent job. So really what we're doing here is we're making sure that we're leveraging the snapshot that we're provisioning to the Veeam backup server so that you offload the traffic from the LAN to the SAN. Let me show you that virtual disk. Here I've loaded our MPIO console, which lists the name of the virtual disk that we're provisioning. And as you can see, Veeam-test-DSO1 is the snapshot that I'm provisioning to my Veeam backup server, right? So essentially here it is. And one last thing I wanted to show you, which is a configuration file that you have to set up front. So if you go under program file, DataCore Veeam integration, you'll find a Veeam integration XML file. This needs to be set up as such, right? So if you take a look, you will see that we just need to, here you have the Veeam identifier. So that's the trailing identifier that we put on our snapshot. It allows us to identify the snapshot and the corresponding data store and virtual disk name. Here you add your SANsymphony-V server that you're going to query, your vCenter server, as well as your VMware ESX proxy server. And that's it, right? So here, notice I'm using a fully qualified name. Obviously, you need a name resolution in this environment, right? And that's essentially all you need to do. If you need to troubleshoot jobs that are not working properly, you can take a look at the log file. And this folder contains all the different logs. Okay, so let's just run that job to see what it actually does in the background. So hit run. What we're going to do now is we're going to jump to our vCenter to see what is happening in the background. Okay, so what you're seeing here is that the script has kicked off a virtual machine snapshot so that we can quiesce the data store in which that VM resides, as well as the VM, of course. And meanwhile, it's utilizing that time frame to actually kick off a DataCore snapshot. And very quickly, you're going to see that this VMware snapshot is going to be removed. So here it is. We just removed the VMware snapshot. And the next things are to actually rescan the HBA on the ESX proxy environment so that we can discover the freshly updated snapshot from DataCore. And the next thing is we're going to rescan the VMFS data store. Here it is. Refresh the whole storage system. And now we're ready to actually start the backup on the Veeam server. So the next phase is to look at our Veeam server. And if you take a look at our Veeam interface, we see that the backup job has been already kicked off and is starting, right? So right now it's building a VM list, and soon enough it's going to start the backup. And here it is. And here is the successfully completed backup job. Next, we're going to see how we can restore that VM. Okay, so my data store got corrupted somehow, and I'm trying to start this virtual machine, and it's really not working. So let's clean up that data store, right, and remove that folder entirely. Okay, I'm gonna close this. Here I'm going to just remove this VM from inventory because it's no longer there, right? Let's get rid of that. Okay, so let's restore the VM. We're going to click on Restore, say Entire VM, say Next. Select the VM that we want from the backup. Here's the backup. Let's pick up our VM, say Add. I'm going to go say Next. Restore to a new location, because essentially we want to restore from where it was saved from, which was the ESX proxy environment, to our production environment. So I'm going to go say Next. Right, it's loading the VM's data, and that's where we're going to make our selection of where we want to save this. So here I'm going to click Host, and actually I do not want to restore this into my proxy environment. I want to restore this in my production environment. Let's pick my DataCore ESX server 2, say OK. Right, so it's going to resolve the default settings, which is fine. Let's say Next. Same resource pool, that's fine. And same configuration, go Next. And essentially it picks up the data source. So you notice it actually knows exactly which data store it wants to do that. I'll leave it to the default VM folder, that's fine. Network, it perfectly realigns. Say Next, say Next. Verifying the VM. And essentially all I need to do is just start the backup. The restore, sorry. Alright, the restoration is taking place, and we'll reconvene when we're done. Alright, we can see the VM has completely restored. Okay, restore operation completed successfully. So let's take a look at our VMware environment and discover that VM. Alright, so if I go to my ESX host, here you can see that VM has been restored, and it is actually sitting on the right data store. So if I browse this data store, you can see that the VM has been fully restored, and I can now power up this machine, and everything is well, right? And here's my VM. You can open the console and you can see it's booting. So that essentially concludes our presentation for today, and thank you so much for watching. You will find more setup information for Veeam backup integration on our website, especially our web help. So here you'll have all the details you need on how to configure your proxy environment and how to create your backup job and set up the task. Of course, you can always contact me. Here is my contact information here. I'll be happy to answer any technical question you may have around our Veeam backup integration and any other subject around DataCore. Thank you so much for watching, and talk to you soon.